Hello everyone, welcome to Richard Talk. Today I want to share some eye-opening insights I learned from Rich Dad and Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, along with another big concept of his called the cash flow quadrant. If you never heard of them, don't worry, I'll break it all down in simple terms. And if you have heard of them, stick around because I will also share my own reflections and maybe challenge a few points. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is one of those books that can really change how you think about money. It certainly changed how I think. It's basically the story of Robert Kiyosaki growing up with two father figures, giving him opposite advice about money. One was his real dad, an educated man with a stable job, who Kiyosaki calls his poor dad, not to insult him, but to highlight his financial mindset. The other was the father of Robert's best friend, a man who dropped out of school but became very wealthy. This was the rich dad. The crux is that poor dad followed the conventional wisdom: go to school, get good grades, get a secure job. He valued job security, a steady paycheck, benefits, all that. Honestly, that's the mindset a lot of us grow up with. You might recognize it. Get a secure job, don't take risks, live within your means. It's well intentioned advice, but it often leaves people financially stuck. He often would say things like, we can't afford that, or be thankful for what you have, which implies that money was scarce and you shouldn't take risks. Rich Dad, on the other hand, had a totally different outlook. He would say, yes, go to school, but also learn how money really works. He taught Robert, don't just work for money, learn to make money work for you. For example, if young Robert wanted something expensive, poor dad would say, we can't afford it. Rich dad would say, how can you afford it? That small change, from a statement to a question, makes a huge difference. One mindset assumes defeat, the other encourages creativity and finding opportunities. He used to quip, my poor dad would say, study hard so you can find a good company to work for. My rich dad would say, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. It was a complete paradigm shift in thinking. One of Rich Dad's famous lessons was, the rich don't work for money. They have money work for them. I remember being blown away by that line. It means rich people don't just earn and spend. They invest in assets that earn for them, even when they are not actively working. And poor dad, by contrast, also worked for his paycheck and was stuck in what Kiyosaki calls the rat race, the endless cycle of go to school, pay the bills, go to work again, and so on. So Rich Dad wanted Robert to break out that cycle by thinking differently. So how do you make money work for you? According to Rich Dad, it starts with understanding assets and liabilities. In simple terms, an asset puts money in your pockets. A liability takes money out. This is the cornerstone of financial literacy in Kiyosaki's view. For example, a rental property that brings in rent each month is assets, which means income in your pockets. Whereas a fancy car that comes with long payments, insurance, and maintenance is a liability, which means money out of your pockets. Even your own house can be a liability if it's just generating expenses and not income. That was a big shocker to me. Wait, my money isn't an asset? But Kiyosaki argues that unless your home is making money for you, which means through renting part of it or eventually selling at a profit, it's not really an asset in his definition. It's an expense. Kiyosaki often uses the game monopoly as an analogy. Buy four greenhouses, then trade up to a red hotel. In other words, gradually acquire smaller assets, and eventually you will have enough to invest in something big that generate even more cash flow. The lesson: to grow wealth, focus on buying assets that generate income, like investments, real estates, business, and minimize liability that drain your income. Rich people acquires assets. The poor and the middle class tend to acquire liabilities that they think are assets. For example, many people get a pay raise and then upgrade to a bigger house or a new car. It feels like an investment in themselves, but often it's just an increase in expenses. I personally start looking at everything I own and asking, is this thing putting money in my pockets or taking it out? Before reading this book, I always thought that answer was simply to make more money at my job. After reading it, I realized it's not just about how much you earn, it's about how you manage what you earn and whether you turn it into more money. It's a simple question, but it can change how you spend and invest. This ties into the importance of financial education. A big takeaway from the book is that financial intelligence is crucial, arguably more important than a high income. You can make a lot of money and still lose it all if you don't know what to do with it. That's why you hear about lottery winners going broke or athletes earning millions and ending up in debt. Kiyosaki saw that his poor dad, who had a PhD, knew a lot about academics, but not about money, while rich dad, who never finished high school, understood money deeply. The traditional education system doesn't really teach us about personal finance. I never learned about taxes or investing in school. Did you? We are taught how to solve math problems or write essays, but not to manage a credit card or build wealth. The good news is we can educate ourselves. Kiyosaki recommended reading financial books, taking classes or seminars, finding mentors, even playing his cash flow board game, which he designed to teach people about investing in a fun way. The more you learn, the more financially secure you can become because you start making smarter decisions. Financial literacy gives you control. You are less likely to be at the mercy of a boss or an economic downturn if you know how to make money work for you and what to do with it. Now, let's talk about Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrants, which is another big concept and really complements the rich dad, poor dad ideas. The cash flow quadrants breaks down the four main ways people make money. Imagine a plus sign splitting a square into four quadrants. Kiyosaki saw his play out in his own life. He's educated poor dad spent his career as an employee and later tried being self-employed and stay financially struggling. Whereas his rich dad built business and investments and became well rich. The letters are E, S, B, and I. E stands for employee. This is when you have a job and you work for someone else. You get a paycheck. The advantage here is stability. You know what you are getting. Maybe you have benefits like healthcare. The downside is, as an employee, you are trading your time for money, and there's usually a limit to how far you can go. If you stop working, the income stops. And S stands for self employed or small business. There are people who work for themselves, freelancers, consultants, small business owners, like a shopkeeper or a doctor with a private practice. The good thing is, you are your own boss. You have more control over your time and potentially over how much money you can make. Work more, earn more. But the flip side is that you basically own a job. If you are not working, your business often isn't working either because you are the engine. A lot of self employed folks end up working longer hours than employees. And if business slows down or you get sick, your income can drop fast. So there's more freedom in S, but also often more stress and risks. B stands for business owner with a big B. This means you own a system or a company that can run without you being there all the time. Think of someone who owns a chain of restaurants or a software company. They have managers and teams in place, so they can theoretically go on vacation and the income still flows. In the B quadrants, you leverage other people's time and skills. The business owner's motto is work on the business, not in the business. The benefits is that your income can scale far beyond what one person could do alone. You are not limited by your own hours or labor, but it takes a lot of efforts and usually some capital to build successful business. And not everyone wants to manage employees or deal with the pressures that come with being the boss. It's a higher risk, higher reward quadrant. I stands for investor. These are people who make money with money. They invest in things like stocks, real estates, or businesses and generate returns, dividends, interest, rents, profits, often without actively working because their money is doing the work. If you're in the I quadrants, you can truly make money while you sleep. For example, if you own stock that pay dividends, those dividends come in whether you are at work or at the beach. The big advantage here is financial freedom. If you have enough investments generating income, you don't need a job. But of course, investing comes with risks. You can lose money if you make poor investments, and it usually takes time and knowledge to build up your investor portfolio. The key insight of the cash flow quadrant is that people on the left side, which is E and S, mostly work for money, either someone else's money or their own, while people on the right side, B and I, have money working for them. Kiyosaki's rich dad encourages him to migrate from the left side to the right side over time. For example, start as an employee or self-employed to earn to learn, but aim to build or acquire business and investments so that eventually you don't have to physically work to earn income. Now I want to add my personal take here. Not everyone needs to become a big business owner or full-time investor, and that's okay. Because we all have different personalities and goals. Kiyosaki's point is not that you are a loser if you are an employee or self-employed. It's that you should be aware of what you're making your money and the trade-offs involved, and then make conscious choices. If you love your job as a teacher or an engineer, which is an employee in the E quadrants, and it gives you a fulfilling job, that's awesome. You can stay in E as long as you want. But you might still take some of your paycheck and invest it. So you get a taste of that I quadrants on the side. Likewise, not everyone is cut to run a large company, and that's fine. Maybe you're a fantastic graphic designer or a skilled craftsman and you prefer to work solo in your own shop. And that's S quadrant. You might never have 100 of employees, but you could still invest your profits or maybe hire an assistant, which is stepping a bit into B quadrant territory. And you can expand your income beyond just your own hours. The bottom line is you can mix and match these quadrants to fit your life. For instance, I have a friend who loves her job as a nurse, so definitely an E quadrant person. She doesn't want to quit nursing because it's her passion, but she seems slowly buying rental properties over the years. Now she has a steady side income from these investments, dipping into the I quadrant while still doing the work she loves. She's not aiming to get rich quick or start a hospital chain, but by mixing quadrants, she has set herself up with more financial security. And for every story of someone who quits their job to build a multi-million-dollar company, there are countless people who quietly achieve financial independence by investing and managing their money wisely while keeping their day job. Both approaches can work as long as you understand the game and play it well. Plenty of people have a full time job, which is E, and invest in stocks or rental properties, or they can run a small business, which is S, and eventually systematize it so it becomes more of a B. There's no one size fits all path to financial success. What Kiyosaki really pushes for is financial awareness. Know where you are in the cash flow quadrants and where you want to be. Understand the pros and cons of each. And each quadrant has risks, and rewards. A job can be secure but limiting. Self-employment offers autonomy but can be exhausting. A big business can generate great wealth but might fail. Investing can multiply your money but can also lose it. There are no absolute best quadrants. It depends on your situation and what you want out of life. The common thread, though, is no matter what quadrant you are in, being financially savvy, like building assets, controlling spending, knowing how to invest, which will improve your situation. To wrap up, here are the key ideas once more. Educate yourself financially and develop a mindset that looks for opportunities. For example, how can I afford it instead of I can't? And know the difference between assets and liabilities and focus on acquiring assets that put money in your pockets and be mindful of how you are earning your income, which quadrant it's coming from. You don't have to switch quadrants if you don't want to, but understanding them can help you make better choices to reach financial security or freedom on your own terms. Ultimately, not everyone will be a billionaire investor or a CEO. You don't need to be. The goal is to achieve financial stability and freedom at whatever level is comfortable for you. The big lesson from Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the cash flow quadrant is that you have more control over your financial fate than you might think. It's not about being perfect or never failing, but about learning and improving with each step. Over time, those small steps in financial discipline and learning can lead to big results. It's not just about working hard, it's about working smart, thinking differently, and sometimes being a little bold. Finally, thank you for hanging out with me and hearing these reflections. I hope you find some useful insights here and maybe a new perspective on money. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to Richard Talk. And you're welcome to leave your comments below. See you next time. Bye bye.